Hi, Jesse Moch, Field Agronomist with Pioneer in North Dakota and Minnesota. So today I want to spend a little time talking to you about wet and cold harvest conditions in soybeans. So it's October 10th, 2018, and we've been in a real wet pattern in North Dakota, and today we're receiving some snowfall. So we only are about 20% harvested, so I wanted to talk about the re-wetting, wetting cycle of soybeans and some shattering exposure, as well as high moisture soybeans for harvest and storage. So to start off with, when we look at shattering and the wetting and re-wetting of soybeans, so there were some soybeans ready, maybe in the low teens, and we got into a wet cycle. Those soybeans should still be okay for shattering. I don't think they got to the point low enough to where when it dries up we'll see a bunch of shattering, but there are higher risk areas. So there were some soybeans that maybe got into the single digits, 7, 8, 9%, and we got into a wet cycle. So those pods were dried down pretty good. They're picking up a bunch of moisture, and then we're going to dry down again. So those might be some fields you want to target for harvest first, because they're going to be at risk for that pod shrinking and swelling and eventually some shattering loss. With that too, check your seed guide. We do rate our varieties for shattering, so some have better resistance than others, so that's a good thing to check. And again, those fields that dried down early and we just didn't get to, you might want to prioritize that depending on if you can get in the field or not. The rest of them that didn't dry down that far were probably still okay. If we'd go through another wet and dry cycle, there might be a higher risk. Now, high moisture soybeans, there's probably a high chance that we're going to run into having to get soybeans, in the mid to upper teens. So, soybeans can be harvested anywhere from 16 to 20, and you can still get them to come in the combine, and storage really becomes the issue at that point. You get above 20, just the quality of harvest itself isn't as good, so really having to wait until we get below that. And really the next issue then is really storage. So a lot of beans are going in the bin because of prices this year. So the first scenario is a bin with you don't have any air capacity. So anytime you're going to get above 15%, there's always a higher risk for some spoilage in the bin. There's going to be hot spots in the bin. You don't have availability to put air through it. So I really encourage you, if you can and the weather allows, to let those soybeans get down, at least to 14, and hopefully be able to get in that range and put them in the bin with no air. Those are the beans that you kind of wait till it's colder out. So if we can get freezing temps or around freezing temps, those beans will hold in the bin okay, as long as our temps stay lower, and the beans going into the bin, we're probably in that 35 degree range, 32 degree range. Now if you do have air, that's maybe a different option. So you can take 2 to 3 points out of soybeans by having a full floor air bin, or tubes work too, but we need good drying weather. We need to be able to have the heat and humidity to be able to bring those around. You're going to have to run your fans quite a bit. Another option too is if you can induce a heat source into those tubes or full floor air, you can add 10 to 20 degrees to that bin. You're really going to help dry out those soybeans and really maintain those beans into the winter and spring months. And then if you have drying capability, you want to maintain in that 130 to 150 degree range and not really get any warmer with that than soybeans. It's a little different than corn. And then the next step, if you can get your bin into, cool down and maintain through the winter, is really keep an eye in the spring because there's an increased risk. So when April comes around, when those warmer temps come along, and maybe some drier days, bringing those beans back into condition should help those from spoiling, because soybeans are considerably difficult to store, carrying into the next summer than corn or wheat. So hoping for some dry weather coming up. We do have a couple weeks in the forecast for some dry weather, and hopefully we can get in the field. Thanks.
That concludes this Pioneer Growing Point Agronomy video podcast. Visit our page on pioneer.com and follow us on Twitter and Facebook for more agronomy insights.